Hi everyone. Welcome to conference number 22 of Phase B of this self-knowledge course. In this conference, we will study a very interesting topic entitled The Intimate Life of Each One. The objective of this lecture is to understand that we all develop our lives on 3 different levels, and that these 3 levels should never be confused or mixed with one another. This lecture is very important because understanding these 3 aspects of our lives and learning how to differentiate and separate them will allow us to have better relationships with the external world. Above all, it will help us establish a better relationship with our own inner being. We will learn why it is important to maintain the necessary silence regarding our intimate life, which is the relationship we have with our own being and with everything that takes place in our inner world. We will also understand why we must remain silent about the different advances we make and the internal information and experiences we receive along this path. There are 3 types of life in which we all develop. First, there is our public life, which takes place in our relationship with people and situations outside our family. Second, there is our private life, which takes place directly within our home and our family nucleus. And third, there is the intimate life of each one, which is connected with our inner world and with all the experiences we live internally. Let us analyze each of these 3 lives. The public life of each one is the part of our life that takes place from the doors of our home outward. In other words, it is the life we live with people who are not part of our family nucleus. This is where we experience everything related to our work, our friendships, our colleagues, our students to whom we transmit knowledge, and in general, everything and everyone connected with the external world. Public life is very important. Apart from being a great psychological gym that provides us with different people and situations through which we can work on ourselves, it also gives us the opportunity to develop the beautiful factor of sacrifice for humanity. Through our public life, we can develop conscious love by giving our brothers and sisters in humanity the opportunity to receive the knowledge that can help them understand that their existence has a higher purpose. We can therefore see that public life is of the utmost importance. It gives us the opportunity to earn merits of the heart that contribute to the advancement of our own inner work. At the same time, through the law of the mirror, it gives us the opportunity to understand ourselves better and to advance in our work of psychological death. What is important is to learn not to mix our public life with the other 2 types of life. We must learn not to bring into our public life things and situations that belong to our private life. We must not bring into public life what happens in our home or the psychological gyms we experience within our own family. And above all, we must not expose publicly what happens in that very private part of our lives that concerns our relationship with our partner, especially everything related to our sexual life. This belongs to our private life and should not be brought into public life. And, as we will see when we speak about intimate life, we must also avoid exposing publicly the internal processes we experience in relation to our own being, as well as the inner experiences and information that he gives us. But it is also very important to learn not to bring the problems of our public life into our home. We must leave work at work. Altercations, conflicts, and difficult situations that we experience outside should be resolved through psychological death and should not be carried into our home. Many times we experience difficult situations in our public life and then bring that psychological burden back home with us. We carry that psychological state into our house and transfer it to the members of our own family. In the end, they are the ones who suffer the consequences and pay for the broken dishes. As we can see, it is vitally important to learn how to keep these 3 types of life separate and never mix them with one another. The second type of life is our private life. This is the part of our life that concerns our family, our parents, our children, and our partner. When we observe this type of life, we see that it also takes place in the external world. It unfolds entirely in our relationship with the people around us. Here, we find all the psychological gyms that family relationships provide us with. This life also has a very important aspect because its most private part, which is our relationship with our partner, gives us the opportunity to develop the first factor of the revolution of consciousness, spiritual birth. Therefore, it is vitally important to treasure our relationship with our partner and to give him or her the value and respect that they deserve. Our partner is that special person who will collaborate with us so that the creation of the existential bodies, which will allow our consciousness to manifest in the different dimensions of nature, can become a reality. And at the same time, we will also collaborate with him or her in this process. It is very important to learn not to bring the private matters of our family, and especially those concerning our relationship with our partner, into our public life. No one should interfere in the relationship between a couple. We must work to understand and eliminate those psychological eyes that make us want to go around talking about matters related to our family life, and above all, about our relationship with our partner. We must observe and identify the defects within ourselves that make us want to talk with our friends or other relatives about the problems we experience in our relationship, seeking their advice. This is a terrible mistake. The matters that belong to our private life must be resolved within our private life through the work of psychological death and the development of conscious love. But it is also extremely important to learn not to interfere in the private lives of others. We should never take it upon ourselves to become counselors who tell other people what they should do in their private lives or how they should handle situations within their relationships. Each person must learn, with the guidance of their own inner being and through their own inner work, how to resolve their particular situations. Therefore, if someone asks us for advice about their private life, it is our duty to tell them to seek and follow the guidance of their own consciousness. It is also very important to remember that we must not bring the problems of our public life into our private life. We must learn to leave the problems that belong to the external world where they belong and not allow them to disturb the harmony of our home and family. Let us now look at the third type of life, which is the most important of all: the intimate life of each one. This type of life includes everything related to our inner world. Once we begin this path of self-knowledge, our intimate life takes on a very important significance. It is through this intimate life that we establish communication with our own inner being. This communication takes place through our internal experiences and through the inner work we carry out. In the intimate life that we live within our inner world, the different initiations, degrees, and advances that our being achieves as we progress in the work of the three factors of the revolution of consciousness take place. The internal experiences that each one of us lives in the inner worlds, everything we experience in the astral, mental, causal, and other dimensions, all belong to the intimate life of each one. The secret teachings that each one of us receives in the inner worlds, as well as the different secrets that are gradually revealed to us as we advance in our inner work, also belong to this intimate life. All of these experiences, teachings, and revelations are part of our most intimate relationship with our own inner being. What is important is to understand that our intimate life becomes profaned when we expose it in our public life. This is a very serious mistake that can create significant stagnation in our inner work. When we learn to remain silent about the different things we receive in the inner worlds, we demonstrate that we are worthy of receiving the treasures of wisdom that our being keeps for us. To learn how to remain silent, it is important to work on our pride, because pride is the psychological defect that loves to talk about itself and reveal its intimate affairs. When we share our internal experiences with others, they lose their strength. However, when we keep them to ourselves, we can later come to understand them more deeply, and this gives us psychological strength. When we tell others about our experiences or ask someone else to interpret an astral experience for us, we lose the opportunity to make our own effort, to develop our own understanding, and to seek the guidance of our own master, our inner being. And when we reveal these experiences out of vanity, pride, or indiscretion, we run the risk that our being will stop giving us important information. Many of the experiences that our inner being gives us allow us to directly experience and understand different things. In this way, they become a living reality for us and give us inner strength. Many times, we receive warnings internally through the astral world about things that are going to happen in the physical world. These warnings can help us unmask traitors and recognize the interference of black magicians who seek to harm the process of sacrifice. We can also receive warnings about future recurrences and many other situations. That is why it is important to make the effort to interpret our own astral experiences and not tell them to anyone else. Otherwise, we may fail to recognize the warnings that are being given to us. If we ask another person to interpret our astral experiences or dreams for us, that person can only tell us what they think the experience might mean. They do not know all the nuances or the internal circumstances that gave rise to that experience. As a result, we could end up confused and disoriented. On the other hand, if that person tries to guess what our being wants to show us through the experience, we can develop a dependency on that person. We may then begin to constantly reveal to them the different secrets that have been entrusted to us. In this way, we fail to develop our own strength and confidence in our own sage, because we begin to depend on the strength and interpretation of an external person. Another important aspect is that by telling others about our internal experiences, we are psychologically exposing ourselves before the person or people to whom we reveal them. Furthermore, if that person knows how to interpret dreams and has bad intentions, they could use this information to manipulate us psychologically. Another reason why we must learn to keep our experiences silent is the impression we can leave on those who listen to us and the consequences that may result from it. By telling others about our internal experiences, we can awaken envy or frustration in them. They could even become discouraged from continuing their inner work because of what they hear from us. If this happens, we would acquire a karma for having contributed to that situation. On the other hand, if our experiences are very impressive to others, we could generate fanaticism. They might begin to see us as someone special, and we ourselves could even begin to feel special. In this way, we would terribly feed our own mythomania. We must understand that we harm ourselves greatly when we reveal our internal experiences. We do ourselves serious harm, and we can even risk being removed from the esoteric work because of our irresponsibility. We may be entrusted with delicate information about ourselves, about other people, and about the universe in general. If we do not learn how to remain silent, we could end up interfering with the processes and spiritual development of others. Therefore, internal experiences should not be revealed. When we receive secret teachings in the inner worlds, we make an oath with our internal father and our particular mother not to divulge them. They are called secret teachings because we receive them in the superior worlds from our internal father and particular mother. They are the ones who reveal these teachings to us. Therefore, when we divulge them, they no longer entrust us with these secrets. Then darkness comes, which is known esoterically as one night. The duration and darkness of that night will depend on the seriousness of the fault. At first, as a consequence of our indiscretion, we may lose the fluidity and ease with which we consciously unfold in the astral plane, as well as the frequency with which we are able to do so. But if we continue repeating the same mistake, we may eventually lose the ability to remember our dreams. This can last for a week, months, or even years, depending on how often we repeat the error and on the magnitude of the information we have revealed. It would therefore be very painful to have to learn the value of silence through the loss of our inner light. We must also learn to differentiate between the inner knowledge we receive in an open book and that which we receive in a closed book. When we receive esoteric knowledge in a closed book, it is knowledge intended exclusively for our being. It should not be revealed in the external world. For this reason, we must learn how to remain silent. But when we receive knowledge in an open book, it can be shared with our students. Through intuition, we learn to differentiate between what we can speak about in order to enrich the understanding of the subjects we teach and what we must keep silent about. What we must understand clearly is that everything related to our internal advances, initiations, degrees, thoughts and internal processes is information that must remain solely and exclusively between us and our inner being. We must not bring this information into our public life or our private life. We must remain completely hermetic with regard to this information. Well, this has been conference number 22 of Phase B. In the next conference, we will study a topic entitled The Symbol of the Eagle Swallowing the Serpent. In this conference, we will talk about the last 3 steps that must be taken to achieve self-realization, and how these steps were represented in the ancient Mesoamerican cultures. It will be a very, very interesting conference. Thank you very much. See you next time.